There is nothing quite like being evicted from your own kitchen while holding a soggy paper plate of cold stuffing. Especially when the person kicking you out is wearing a dress that cost more than your car. Standing in the middle of a $2.5 million lake house that legally belongs to you. But that was exactly where I found myself on Thanksgiving. I was standing by the oversized marble island, trying to find a corner where I wasn't in the way. When my sister Savannah breezed in, she looked me up and down like I was a stain on her new rug. "Brianna," she said, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she reserved for me. "You need to head out now. The important guests are arriving soon. And honestly, you just don't fit the vibe. Take some leftovers if you want." She gestured vaguely at the trash can. I looked at her. I looked at the house I paid for, and something inside me finally snapped. Before I tell you how I wiped that smirk off her face and what my lawyer found under the floorboards, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? I want to see how far this story travels. I wasn't crashing on my friend's lumpy futon because I lacked ambition. I wasn't working double shifts at a coffee shop and selling my art for pennies because I was lazy. I was in that position because, for the last 3 years, my life had been carefully dismantled by the people who were supposed to protect me. You see, while I was scraping together change for the bus, my parents, Richard and Lisa, were busy intercepting every single letter, package, and legal document my grandmother Catherine sent me. Grandma Catherine was the Iron Lady of our family, wealthy and terrifyingly sharp. But she had been living overseas in Europe for her health. She bought this estate for me 3 years ago as a trust for my future. A place where I could build my art studio and finally have stability. But I never saw the deed. I never saw the keys. Instead, my parents intercepted the transfer. They told Grandma that I had spiraled out of control. They told the only person who ever truly loved me that I was in a high-end rehab facility for a severe drug addiction and that I wasn't allowed to have contact with the outside world. They said I was unstable, dangerous, and needed tough love. It was the perfect lie. It explained why I never wrote back. It explained why I never thanked her. It garnered them sympathy from their country club friends, the poor. Suffering parents, dealing with a junkie daughter. Meanwhile, they handed the keys to Savannah, my sister, the golden child who had never worked a hard day in her life. She didn't just live in my house, she consumed it. She turned my sanctuary into a backdrop for her influencer career, posting photos of her renovations, her lake views, and her hard-earned success. She spent $500,000 of the maintenance fund Grandma sent on landscaping and parties, while I had $4 in my bank account. You might wonder why I didn't fight back sooner. Why I accepted the scraps and the insults for so long without burning the place down. It wasn't just fear. It was something far more insidious. It's a psychological trap called normalized cruelty. When you grow up in a house where you are always the problem and your sister is always the prize, you stop questioning the math. You lose your baseline for what love is supposed to look like. My parents didn't just steal a house, they stole my reality. They spent decades conditioning me to believe that I was the burden, the screw-up, the one who was lucky to even be invited to dinner. They normalized the abuse until I believed that sleeping on a couch while my sister slept in a master suite was exactly what I deserved. But that normalization shattered the moment I saw Savannah standing in my kitchen, looking at me with that mixture of pity and disgust. I realized then that she didn't just want the house. She wanted me to thank her for letting me visit it. She wanted me to be grateful for the humiliation. The fog in my brain didn't just lift, it evaporated. I looked at my parents, who were busily arranging the seating chart to ensure I was hidden away from their wealthy friends. And I realized I wasn't the crazy one. I wasn't the addict. I was the owner, and it was time to collect the rent. I didn't leave. I didn't take the trash bag of leftovers Savannah offered. And I didn't slink out the back door like the stray cat they treated me as. Instead, I leaned against the marble counter, took a bite of a cold dinner roll, and waited. The doorbell rang a moment later. Savannah smoothed her dress, checking her reflection in the microwave door. That must be the mayor. She announced to the room, her voice bright and fake. Everyone, please, look alive. My mother, Lisa, rushed to the door, a welcoming smile plastered on her face, ready to greet the local elite. But when she opened that heavy oak door, the smile didn't just fade, it fell off her face entirely. Standing on the porch wasn't the mayor. It was Grandma Catherine. She looked like she had just stepped off a runway, leaning on a silver-handled cane, wrapped in a coat that probably cost more than the tuition my parents refused to pay. "Surprise," she said, her voice crisp and commanding. I thought I would see how my investment is maturing. The silence in the hallway was absolute. It was the kind of silence that screams. My father, Richard, dropped his glass. It shattered on the hardwood, but nobody moved to clean it up. They were frozen, staring at the ghost they thought they had buried with their lies. "Mother," my dad stammered, his face draining of color. "We didn't. We thought you were still in Zurich." Grandma stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk looking for a field mouse. "I was. But I decided a family home needs a family." Her gaze landed on me in the kitchen. For a second, her eyes widened. "Brianna, my heavens. You're in out." The confusion in her voice broke my heart. She genuinely thought I was locked away. Before I could speak, my mother lunged. She physically stepped between me and Grandma, her hands fluttering nervously. She escaped. "Mom," Lisa lied, the words tumbling out in a panic. "We didn't want to worry you. She showed up an hour ago, completely high. Look at her clothes. Look at her eyes. She's unstable." Savannah caught on instantly. She rushed over, grabbing Grandma's arm, trying to steer her into the living room and away from me. "It's true, Grandma," Savannah said, putting on her best tragic performance. "It's been a nightmare. She's been screaming at us, demanding money for drugs. We were just trying to get her to leave peacefully before the police arrived." I watched them. I watched my own mother and sister paint me as a monster to the woman who saved us. My father marched into the kitchen, his hand gripping my upper arm hard enough to bruise. "You need to go," he hissed in my ear, his breath smelling of expensive scotch and fear. "Get out the back door right now. If you say one word to her, I will make sure you never work in this town again. Do not ruin this for your sister." He tried to shove me toward the mudroom. That shove was the mistake. That physical touch, that absolute arrogance that he could manhandle me out of my own life, was the spark that lit the fuse. I didn't stumble. I planted my feet. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look down. I looked up. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't give my father the satisfaction of seeing me break down like the unstable junkie he'd painted me to be. Instead, I did something cold. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My father frowned, his grip loosening slightly as confusion replaced his aggression. "What are you doing?" he snapped. "Calling your dealer." "No," I said, my voice steady, devoid of the tremor that used to be there whenever he raised his voice. "I'm calling an audience." I opened Instagram. I knew Savannah's notifications were on. She lived for the dopamine hit of a like. I knew her followers were currently refreshing their feeds, waiting for the exclusive house tour she had promised them all week. I swiped over to the camera, typed in a caption that I knew would trigger every algorithm, the truth about the lake house, and hit go live. I held the phone up, turning the camera mode to selfie, so my father's red, angry face was perfectly framed in the background. "Say hi." "Dad," I said flatly. Then I turned and walked right past him, back into the main hallway. He lunged for me, but he stopped short when he realized the recording light was on. He was a coward, and cowards hate witnesses. I walked into the living room. It was a masterclass in deception. Savannah was currently holding Grandma's hands, looking up at her with dewy, innocent eyes, probably spinning another tale about my tragic fall from grace. My mother was nodding along, playing the role of the long-suffering saint. The scene was perfect. It was a lie so polished it gleamed. "Grandma," I said, my voice cutting through their performance like a serrated knife. Savannah's head snapped up. Her eyes went to the phone in my hand. And for the first time in her life, I saw genuine terror. She knew. She knew that the little number in the corner of the screen was ticking up 10 viewers. 50. 200. She knew that her brand, her lifestyle, her entire carefully curated existence was about to be exposed as a fraud. "Brianna, put that away," Savannah hissed, her voice dropping an octave. The influencer sparkle vanishing instantly. "Grandma doesn't like phones." "I think Grandma will like this," I replied, stepping closer, keeping the camera steady. I turned the lens so it captured the entire room, the vaulted ceilings, the custom fireplace, the expansive view of the lake that I had paid for with 3 years of my life. "Grandma, I have a question for you, and I want you to answer it while 500 people are watching." Grandma Catherine frowned, looking from the phone to me, then to the terrified faces of my parents. She straightened her spine, sensing the shift in the room's gravity. "What is it?" "Child, why are you filming?" "I want you to tell everyone whose house this is," I said. "Because Savannah here has been telling the internet and all our family friends that she bought it, that she earned it. She's hosting a dinner tonight in her home. But I seem to remember you buying this deed for someone else." The air left the room. My mother made a small, strangled noise in her throat. Savannah stood up, her hands shaking. "Don't," she whispered. "Brianna, please. We can talk about this?" "We're done talking," I said. "Grandma." Grandma Catherine looked at Savannah. She looked at the expensive renovations, the furniture that wasn't hers, the entitlement that radiated off my sister like heat. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and the realization hit her. The lies about rehab, the missing letters, the unstable daughter. It all clicked into place. Her expression hardened into diamond. "This house," Grandma said, her voice projecting clearly to the microphone, "belongs to Brianna Hansen. I purchased it for her 3 years ago, and if anyone else is claiming ownership, they are a thief." I turned the camera back to Savannah. Her face was pale, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly. The comments on the screen were scrolling so fast they were a blur shock. Questions, accusations from her own friends, asking why she lied. "You heard her," I said to the camera, and to my sister, "Get out of my chair." The doorbell rang again, cutting through the thick, suffocating silence of the living room. It wasn't the polite chime of a guest. It was the sharp, insistent ring of authority. Savannah sat frozen, staring between Grandma and my phone as her public downfall streamed live. My mother looked ready to faint. My father was purple with rage. "I'll get that," I said calmly. At the door stood Mr. Watson, Grandma Catherine's enforcer, in a tailored suit flanked by 2 police officers. "We have a warrant," he said. Stepping inside, Savannah squeaked. "What warrant?" Watson ignored her and placed a document on the table, the deed Savannah had flaunted for months. "This is a forgery," he said. "High quality, but fake." My father protested. Watson calmly explained that printer identification codes showed the document had been printed 6 months ago, 2 days after Grandma called to say she might visit. Silence fell. They had panicked and fabricated evidence. They had failed. Watson then produced unopened letters, my stolen mail. "Federal mail theft is a felony," he added flatly. An officer stepped forward. "Savannah Hanson, you're under arrest for identity theft, forgery, and grand larceny." Savannah tried to run. She didn't make it 3 steps. As she was cuffed, she screamed, blaming my father, confessing everything. The live stream kept running. 10,000 people watched the golden child fall. "Smile," I said. "You're finally trending." Desperate, Savannah claimed she deserved reimbursement for the $200. 000. She spent renovating the house. Watson corrected her. Because she forged the deed. She was a bad faith improver. Under the law, every improvement she made now belonged to the rightful owner without compensation. Her legs gave out. "Why did you wait?" she sobbed to Grandma. Grandma answered calmly, "Because the pool wasn't finished." She explained she waited until Savannah poured every dollar into the property. "Consider it rent for the 3 years you stole." Savannah was dragged out, screaming. 2 days later, my parents bailed her out. That night, the lake house security went offline. Savannah broke in, destroying everything. Windows smashed, floors ruined, furniture slashed. The police saw felony vandalism. I saw collapse. Without the house, Savannah had no identity. Destroying it was her ego's funeral. She was arrested again. This time, no bail. The investigation widened. My parents were exposed for years of fraud. Their reputation collapsed. They were left alone with legal bills and shame. 6 months later, the house was restored, paid for by selling Savannah's car and designer clothes. Grandma sat on the deck, watching the water. "It's finally a home," she said. I dipped my hand into the infinity pool Savannah paid for. Cold. Real. She wanted a mansion to feel important. I just wanted peace. Now she has a cell, and I have the view. If your family profits from your pain, count the cost. Sometimes survival means changing the locks, calling a lawyer, and letting people face the consequences of their own choices.